Hey everybody, Connor here today at etrailer.com. Today we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the etrailer invisible base plate kit here on our 2020 Jeep Gladiator. So this is what our base plate kit is going to look like installed on our Jeep. As we can see, it has a very clean, seamless finished install look. The only thing we're going to be seeing here is we have the tab for our base plate that we insert the arms into, as well as these safety chain links here that we're going to attach our safety cables to. The cross tube is actually going to be hidden behind this plastic skid shield here, again just making for a really nice finished install look. So one of the reasons I really like this etrailer base plate kit is that it can be used with pretty much any tow bar. Therefore, no matter if we have a Roadmaster, a Blue Ox, a Demco, or an etrailer tow bar, we're going to be able to use this base plate kit. Most of the adapters needed to use these different tow bars are going to come with the base plate kit, but there are some ones separately depending on which tow bar you have, so make sure you check out our product page so you can get everything you need. So right now, we have it set up with the plugs installed. It's how you would be set up when you're just driving around town after you unhook from the RV. But when we're ready to hook back up to our motorhome so we can go ahead and hit the road again, all we need to do is simply remove these little covers here. These are nice because they stop any dirt and debris from getting inside our base plate kit and causing any issues. We'll just simply pull those out, because now we can go ahead and take our tow bar and insert it into the base plate tabs here on our vehicle. So in order to do this, it's going to be super easy. We don't have to worry about any other adapters or any other parts for our connection here. The only two things we're going to have is our tow bar and our base plate kit. Normally, you'd have some removable arms here, which you attach to the tow bar and then attach to the base plate kit. But for this particular kit, which is another reason why I really like them here, is because everything is going to be integrated into the tow bar. So it's going to cut down on the required number of parts we need, as well as having to keep track of them. So the way this works, it's pretty simple. What we're going to do is we're going to simply align the tab here with the tab inside. So we're going to come in with the tab here at a horizontal angle, and then we're going to press all the way in, and then we'll simply turn to lock into place. Once that's done, we can take our bail clip and pin here, line up the holes, and then lock it to secure it in place. We'll just repeat that same process on the other side. But that's it. Now we'll go ahead and hook up our safety cables, along with our electrical connector and any other connections that we need, and then we're ready to hit the road. But it's that simple. So once we reach our campsite and we're ready to unhook, all we need to do is go ahead and remove the safety cables. Then we can remove the bail pin and clip here, which is super easy to do. Then we'll rotate our arms, and we should be able to pull them straight out. Then we can go ahead and put our protective covers back in. But that's it. Now we're ready to head into town. So in regards to installation, this is definitely going to be one of the easier base plate kits to install. Now I personally love working on these Jeeps, both the Wranglers and the Gladiators, because the flat toe setups, in particular the base plate kits, they're usually pretty simple. For this particular application, we really didn't need to make any modifications to the vehicle. We did have to open up some of our holes just slightly, but aside from that, everything's pretty much bolt on. We'll have to make a couple small cuts to this plastic skid shield below, but that's pretty much it. So now that we've gone over some of the features of our base plate kit, let's go ahead and pull this baby in the garage and show you how it's done. So the first step of our installation here, we want to come to the front of our vehicle. We're going to be removing our front bumper here. The first step to do that, if we look on the inside between the grill and the backside edge of our bumper, we're going to have these two push pin fasteners, one on either side. In order to remove these, we're simply going to take some sort of pry tool such as a screwdriver, and we're going to pop out that center section. And once we pop out that center section, we should be able to remove the rest of the fastener. Just like that. Now we can go and repeat that process on the other side. So now for this next part here, we're going to come underneath our vehicle and we're going to remove this plastic air dam that you see here. Now in order to remove this, we're going to have two different types of fasteners. We're going to have two screws on the bottom here, which we'll remove with an 8mm socket, and then we'll have some push pin fasteners that are sort of tucked up behind our front bumper here. You can see one of these here. So in order to remove these, we're again going to get a pry tool here. We're going to sneak it behind our bumper fascia here. We should be able to pry the middle out and remove the rest of the fastener, just like so. We'll go ahead and repeat that process on the remaining 7 push fasteners behind our bumper fascia here. Now that we have all of our push pin fasteners out of the top, we'll go ahead and remove these 2 screws here on the bottom. So with our 2 screws removed, we should now be able to pull out our plastic skid shield. We can go ahead and set this aside. So now once we have our skid shield removed, we're going to come up underneath the vehicle from behind, looking at the back of our front bumper fascia. If we look inside here, we're going to see 2 nuts here. We're actually going to have 8 total nuts that we're going to have to remove, 2 on the inside of the frame and 2 on the outside of the frame on each side. We're going to take an 18mm socket and we're going to go ahead and break all those loose, then we can come back with our impact. So we've got our 8 nuts removed, and now with an extra set of hands, we can go ahead and pull our bumper off the vehicle. Keep in mind, on the passenger side, we are going to have a connection here on the frame rail that we need to remove before we pull the bumper completely away. We'll simply depress that and then pull out. Just like that. Now we can go ahead and set our bumper aside. So now, once we have our bumper off, we're going to come to the outside of either side of our frame here. We're going to see these brackets which are held on with our bolt here. We're going to take a 16mm socket and we're going to remove this bolt here along with this bracket. We're going to be doing this on both sides of the frame, just on the outside. Now we can go ahead and set these aside. So now, directly behind that bracket we just removed here, we're going to get a little bit of tape, about 4 or 5 inches or so, and then we're going to take one of the flat washers that come with our kit here. And what we're going to do is we're going to align these washers with the holes on the back of this flange here. We need to do this for both the top and bottom hole as well as both sides. So I'll show you how that's done now. Just take a piece of tape, center the washer on the tape, then we can sort of line up our hole here in the back of our flange. And then we'll use our tape here to sort of secure it in place and get it to stay there. We'll go ahead and repeat this process for our other 3 holes. We'll go ahead and poke a hole through our piece of tape here as well. So with an extra set of hands, we can go ahead and pick our base plate up. We're going to come down from beneath and slide it upward. And if you remember the 2 holes, or the 2 bolts that we took out on the side of the frame that held in our bumper support brackets, we're going to be using these to re-secure the base plate. So we'll just simply thread that in. We'll have 1 on each side. So now we've roughly aligned the holes in our flange here with the holes in our bumper by tightening these bolts and holding this in place. Now we just snug these up. We didn't torque them down, because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take these serrated bolts here that come with our kit. We're going to try to line up our holes here. But as you can see, the hole in our frame doesn't quite line up with the hole in our base plate kit. So what we need to do is we need to take some sort of a file, or we'll be using a burr bit here, and we just need to enlarge this hole so we can pass our bolt through. We'll need to do that on both sides. So now that we've wallowed out our hole here, we'll just take our bolt here and test fit it. So we have plenty of space here. Now we can go ahead, we're going to take a paint marker here, and we're just going to fill up all that rough metal that we just ground down so we don't have any issues with rust. So now that we have our paint in the holes here, we're going to take some of our Loctite in our kit here. We're going to place a thin line here on our bolt. That should be plenty. Now we're going to take our bracket here that comes with our kit. We're going to feed that through the opening in the bottom of the frame. We're going to try to get the weld nut to come up and sit flush against the inside of the frame so we can tighten our bolt. Now we can go ahead and repeat that process on the other side. And now that we have these two bolts here on the bottom securing our base plate, we can go ahead and remove these, apply some Loctite to the threads, then reinstall them. We'll do that on both sides, and then we can torque everything down. Keep in mind, before we start tightening everything, we do want to make sure that all our holes here are aligned with the flange here on our frame and the holes in our bracket. Now we'll take our 16 and 19 millimeter sockets. We'll go ahead and torque down all of our bolts to the specifications in our instructions. We need to take our safety cables here, and we need to use these to attach the base plate to the frame of our vehicle here. Now we've already done one on the other side. We'll go ahead and show you what we did, but we're going to take one end of the cable, we're going to pass it around that back side there, then we're going to bring the other end, come out here, then we're going to take the other end of the cable here, we're going to loop that back around the back side there. Once we do that, we should get the other link to come out pretty close, and we can take one of our quick links in our kit here, and we can simply use this to join the two ends of the cable. Now if you think you have a better method to attach this, you're more than welcome to do so. The instructions don't really specify an exact route. You just simply need to wrap it around both the frame and the base plate. We'll go ahead and use a crescent wrench to tighten this up. So as you can see now, we have the plastic skid shield or the fascia, whatever you want to call it here. We have it flipped around because we went ahead and marked out the cutouts we need to make in order to clear our safety chain tabs as well as the arms for our base plate kit. So you're not going to be able to see it, but right here we're going to have an indentation on each side here. And this is going to be essentially the center line point that we're going to make all our measurements from. Now they do a pretty good job of explaining this in the instructions in regards to the diagram, but essentially we're going to use this center line here. We're going to measure out 2 inches to the inside on either side. Then we're going to measure 3.5 inches out to the outside here for a total of 5.5 inches across. And then we're simply going to come down 3 inches from that. So we should have 2 rectangles. We can go ahead and cut these out now, but to help us doing that, we're going to take a drill bit here. We're going to drill out all 4 corners, which is going to help us get a little bit cleaner cuts when we come back with our Dremel. So let's go ahead and do that now. So now we'll take our Dremel tool here. We'll go ahead and finalize our 2 cutouts. Now we're going to take a file here or some sandpaper. We're just going to clean up all the rough edges. So here's what our finished product will look like. We'll simply just go ahead and repeat that process on the other side. So once we have our plastic skid shield cut out, what the instructions want us to do is they actually want us to go ahead and reinstall this back onto our bumper fascia now so we can put everything back on the vehicle in one piece. So we'll go ahead and line everything up. Just like that. Then we can go ahead and reinstall all of our push pin fasteners. So now we can go ahead and set the bumper back on the vehicle, and we can reinstall everything in the reverse order that we took it off. Don't forget, on the passenger side here, we do have one electrical connector we need to re-plug in. So once we get all 8 of our bumper nuts torqued down, the last thing is we have these 2 screws which are holding, or rather supporting, the bottom of this plastic fascia here. However, per the instructions, we need to bend these tabs here on either side down a little bit so we can make contact with the holes in our skid shield. Just going to take a pair of vice grips here. Just going to work that metal down gently, bending it more towards the ground. So now we can go ahead and install our base plate tabs onto our tow bar. Now granted, this part of the installation is going to vary depending on what tow bar you have, but it comes with hardware as well as instructions for multiple tow bars. So make sure you check that beforehand. For this particular setup with the HD tow bar, we're going to be using the 1/2-inch bolts and these washers here. Put one into the bolt. We'll follow that up with a washer to hold that in place. Now we can go ahead and stick that onto our tow bar arm. We'll get one of our other washers ready, sort of slide that up underneath. And then we should be able to rotate it and stick our bolt the rest of the way through. However, we're going to need, most likely, to get a flathead screwdriver to move that washer up to where we need it. There we go. Now we can follow that up with our lock nut. Now we'll go ahead and snug that down. We'll be using a 19mm socket and wrench in order to snug up our hardware here. So we don't have a torque spec here that we need to tighten this down to. It's really going to be by feel. So right now, there's probably a good amount of tension there. We need to be able to move freely because we do need to rotate these to lock it in place. So you don't want it too tight or else it's going to hamper your ability to lock it in place, but you also don't want it too loose. So it's really by feel, but this should be perfect. We'll go ahead and repeat this process on the other side. And that'll complete the installation of the eTrailer base plate kit here for our 2020 Jeep Gladiator.